In late November 1975, Bohemian Rhapsody reached #1 on the UK Singles Chart. It had been released on the 31st of October and had entered at number 47 and had climbed to the top in a little under 2 weeks, the 6-minute record that nobody believed could be a single, the record the label had said could not receive enough airplay to chart, the record that Freddie Mercury had defended with the specific certainty of someone who understood what was inside it. Number 1. Brian May has described the moment when he was able to tell Freddie in the terms of someone who has not forgotten it. He has said it was one of the most significant moments of the band's life. He has said that what Freddie Mercury said when he heard the news has stayed with him. He has not given us exactly what Freddie said. He has given us the quality of it, the specific texture and weight in the careful terms of someone who keeps the most significant things close. What he has said is enough for us to understand the shape of the moment, the silence before the words, the brevity of the words when they came, and the specific quality of what those words revealed about who Freddie Mercury was and what this moment meant to him. This video is about that moment, about what the #1 meant, about the silence, and about the one thing Freddie said. To understand what #1 meant to Freddie Mercury, you have to understand what Bohemian Rhapsody had cost. The recording had taken 3 weeks at Rockfield Studio in Wales in August 1975. The vocal harmonies alone had required approximately 180 separate overdubs, 180 versions of Freddie Mercury's voice, layered to build the specific choir the operatic midsection required. The structure of the song was not something that had emerged from the session. It had been complete in Freddie Mercury's head before the recording began. He had carried it for years. The 3 weeks at Rockfield were the execution of a vision that had been building across years of his creative life. When the record was finished, Freddie Mercury had heard the playback and wept. Brian May was there. He saw it. He has described it. And a few months later, in late November 1975, the record that had made Freddie Mercury weep at its own playback was at #1. The #1 was not simply the arrival of commercial success. It was the specific vindication of a position that Freddie Mercury had been alone in holding, that the record could and should be released as a single, that the 6-minute length was not an obstacle but was simply what the song required. The record label had said no. The radio infrastructure was designed around the 3-minute single. The commercial assessment from every professional in the room had been, "This cannot chart." Freddie Mercury had said, "Just trust me." And Kenny Everett had played it before the official release, and the listeners had called in, and the label had released it. And within 2 weeks, it was at #1. Every professional had been wrong. Freddie Mercury had been right. The #1 was not just the chart position, it was the confirmation, made public and permanent, that the position he had held alone had been correct. He had known. He had been alone in knowing. And now the chart said he had been right. The professional consensus had said no. Every framework had said no. And Freddie Mercury had said, "Just trust me." And within 2 weeks of the release, the record that could not chart was at #1. Not because the frameworks had changed or the radio infrastructure had adapted. Because the record was what Freddie Mercury had known, it was the specific thing that exceeded the frameworks, genuinely beyond what the frameworks were built to contain. He had known this before the chart positions confirmed it. He had known it alone. And #1 was the moment the aloneness ended and the knowing became public and shared and permanent. Bohemian Rhapsody's ascent to #1 in November 1975 changed the trajectory of Queen's career in a specific and irreversible way. Before #1, Queen were a band with a following, with the reputation of being extraordinary, live and uncommercial in the studio. After #1, they were the band that had made the record nobody believed could be a single, and that had gone to #1 and stayed there for 9 weeks. The 9 weeks matter. It is not simply the achieving of #1 that defines what Bohemian Rhapsody did. It is the 9 weeks, the sustained commercial domination of a song the establishment had said could not work. The record had not simply defied the frameworks. It had exceeded them so completely that defiance was not even the right word. 9 weeks of public, undeniable confirmation that the person who had stood against the professional consensus had understood something the consensus had not. Brian May has spoken about the period of Bohemian Rhapsody's chart ascent and its arrival at number one across multiple interviews since. He has described it as one of the defining moments of the band's life, the moment when what they were doing became visible to the world in a way that had not been visible before. He has described Freddie Mercury's response to the number one in the careful terms of someone present for something private who has chosen to protect its privacy while confirming its significance. What he describes, a Freddie Mercury who, when the full weight of the achievement arrived, was quiet in a way that was different from his ordinary public persona. The wit, the theatrical deflection, the specific performance of confidence, these were not present in that moment. What was present was the private person receiving the confirmation of something known for a long time and finding, in the receiving of it, something that the preparation for the moment does not fully contain. The silence in Brian May's account of the moment was not the silence of someone who did not know what to feel. It was the silence of someone who knew exactly what to feel and who needed a moment to be inside that feeling before speaking. Freddie Mercury had built, across 20 years, a relationship with public performance that left almost no space for the unmanaged response. But this was not a stage. This was a private moment, a telephone call, the specific intimacy of hearing news that matters in the company of someone who matters. The public persona had no role to play. What was present was the private person, and the private person was silent for a moment before speaking, because what had arrived, the confirmation that what he had known alone was right, was large enough to require a moment of simply being present with it before finding the words. The silence was not absence. The silence was presence, the specific presence of someone who was fully inside a moment before speaking about it. Freddie Mercury had spent years building the performance that left no unmanaged space, and in this moment, in the privacy of the news and the conversation, the performance was not needed and was not present. What was present was the person who had carried the song for years before making it, who had stood alone against the professional consensus in defending its release, who had wept at the playback of his own work because it had said what he needed it to say. That person was present, and that person was silent for a moment, because the moment was exactly as large as it was. Brian May has described the sentence that ended the silence in terms that tell us its quality without telling us its words. What Freddie said was not the reaction of someone surprised. It was not the performance of joy or relief or vindication. It was the specific quality of someone who had understood what the confirmation actually meant, not commercially, but in the sense of what it meant for the work and for the person who had made it. The sentence Brian May describes was brief. It was precise. It came from someone who had been thinking about something for a very long time, and who, in the moment when the thinking was confirmed by the world's response, found that what needed to be said was smaller than the preparation suggested because the preparation was the work, and the work was complete. Brian May has not given us the exact words. The quality of them is the quality of completeness. The sentence said what was true. It did not need to say more. The reason Brian May has not given us the exact words is the same reason he has not given us the exact words from other private moments. The same reason Peter Freestone has been careful with the content of the last months. The same reason the people who knew Freddie Mercury best have given us the shape of the significant things rather than their literal content. The moment was private. It happened between two people in the specific intimacy of a conversation, not for the public record. The words Freddie Mercury said were said to Brian May, not to the world. Brian May has chosen, consistently, to keep the literal content of private moments with the people who live them. The public world has Bohemian Rhapsody. It has the 9 weeks and the 2 billion streams. What it does not have, what Brian May has decided it does not need, is the private sentence Freddie Mercury said in the moment when the number became real. The sentence was Freddie's. Brian May heard it. He has kept it. Bohemian Rhapsody went to number one a second time in late November 1991, in the weeks following Freddie Mercury's death. The second chart run 5 weeks at number one was the public expression of grief for the loss of the person who had made the record. It was also the second confirmation of what Freddie Mercury had known in 1975. The first number one had said, "You were right about what this is." The second said, "And what it is you." Freddie Mercury was not alive to receive the second confirmation. Brian May was. And whatever Brian May had heard Freddie say in 1975, in the private moment of the first number one, he carried it through the second, through the 5 weeks in 1991, when the record that had made Freddie weep at its own playback was again at number one. This time because Freddie was gone. Number one in 1975. The silence, the sentence, the 9 weeks. Number one again in 1991. 5 weeks because Freddie was gone. 2 chart runs separated by 16 years. The first, the confirmation that he had been right. The second, the world saying goodbye through the record that most completely expressed him. Brian May was present for both. He heard the sentence in 1975. He carried it through 1991. He carries it still. The sentence was brief. It was precise. It said what was true. And Brian May has kept it, because keeping it is the most honest form of respect available for a private thing said by a private person in the most significant professional moment of his life. The specific quality of Freddie Mercury's response to Bohemian Rhapsody reaching number one, the silence, then the brief and precise sentence, reveals something about his relationship with his own work that the public record rarely makes visible. Freddie Mercury was, in his public life, the performer, the wit, the theatrical command, the specific quality of someone always fully present in the public context. What the public record does not fully preserve is the private relationship with the work itself, the relationship between the person and the music he was making, which was, by the accounts of the people who saw it, a relationship of complete seriousness and complete love. He cried at the playback of Somebody to Love. He was silent for a moment when Bohemian Rhapsody went to number one. Both times the performance was not present. The person who had made the music was. And both times what the person showed was the quality of someone for whom the music was not a career, but a necessity. Bohemian Rhapsody has been streamed more than 2 billion times. It is regularly cited in polls and in critical assessments as one of the greatest recordings ever made. Each stream is a continuation of the confirmation that began with the first number one in 1975, a continuation of what Freddie Mercury knew before the confirmation arrived. He is not here to receive the 2 billion. He received the first number one. He was silent for a moment. He said one thing, and Brian May heard it. And the work that produced it, the 3 weeks at Rockfield, the 180 overdubs, the refusal to edit the 6 minutes, the Just Trust Me continued doing what it had always been doing, being exactly what it was, which was more than any framework was built to contain. 2 billion streams. He received the first number one. He said one thing. Brian May heard it. The work continued being what it always was. And Brian May, who was there for the first number one, and the sentence, and the 9 weeks and the second number one in 1991, has kept the sentence. He has described its quality. He has not given us its words. The words were Freddie's, said in a private moment in late 1975, before the 2 billion streams, before the 9 weeks, before the second number one, before any of the evidence that has since accumulated for what Freddie Mercury already knew when he stood alone against the professional consensus and said, "Just trust me, he was right." He said one thing when the first number one confirmed it, and Brian May is still carrying that one thing. In late November 1975, Bohemian Rhapsody was at number one. Brian May has described what happened when the news arrived, the quality of Freddie Mercury's response, the silence, the brief and precise sentence that ended the silence. He has not given us the exact words. The exact words were said between two people in a moment, and what belongs to that private moment belongs to the person who spoke in it, and that person is gone. What Brian May has given us is enough. That the response was not surprise because Freddie Mercury had known this was coming, had known it from the inside of the record across 3 weeks of making. That the response was not performance, that the response was brief and precise and true. We have the record. We have the 9 weeks and the second number one 16 years later and the 2 billion streams. What we do not have is the sentence. The sentence belongs to him, and Brian May has kept it the way the people who loved him keep the things that belong to him completely, without offering them to the world that is asking.